Mhm. Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV, and we're lifelong Catholics. And what we do is all for free, and for our love of Jesus Christ, and for our Holy Mother, the Church, and we'll defend our Holy Mother, the Church. We're going to do another program on monarchy, but this time it's a little directed at the traditional Catholics who shun it. We have Brother Alexis Manolo on with us.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on Ordo Militaris Radio TV again. Great pleasure. And before anyone starts, casting suspicions, I'm the one who asked for the show. Because I remember when I considered myself a traditional Catholic way back in the 90s, when the word meant something that it doesn't mean today. All kinds of people go on social media and claim they're traditional Catholic. It's kind of like Nancy Pelosi claiming she's a Roman Catholic. And usually people claim it are more and more increasingly they're socialists, they're Freemasons, they're globalists, or they're secret allies of these and they don't want to explain it, or they're ardent defenders of globalist puppets in the church, obviously cardinals and others who have sold themselves out. And, it's just laughable what people call traditional Catholics anymore, traditional Catholic priests. They're doing things that wouldn't even done 30 years ago. But it's like a whole system of mind control. It's become much more ideological mind control. Has nothing really substantial to it, but you have to think the way you're told. And so it's really one of the areas of Russia that Our Lady warned us about is ideologies. We did a whole program on ideologies. So now we're going to talk about Catholic monarchy because this shatters all modern ideologies.
Yeah, so when we think of Catholic monarchy, we're not thinking of the time up from the American Revolution to up to the French Revolution, where it was pretty much becoming just something for show. Real Catholic monarchy was amazing. The kings were not sissies. The kings were not just sit there in their fancy castles and eat all day, drink all day, and do whatever with women, or sometimes, God forbid, with other of the same genders. They actually went out, protected the church, protected the entire church by getting rid of sodomite popes, sodomite cardinals. Yeah,
Defended Europe from Muslim invasion, barbarian invasion, Mongol invasion, pirates, Vikings, the good old Catholic days. So,
yeah. So whenever I see something like what's going on in the Vatican with Bergoglio and his sodomite mafia, I was like, I sure wish this was the good old days. Just ride up in there and arrest everybody and send them where they won't be heard from again and clean house and everything. But people are like, no, it's modern day. You got laws now protecting
yeah.
them.
So you've touched on an important point because one of the big tactics of Marxist critique is to say you're delusional if you try to ideologize the past and bring back something that never existed because you're a romantic and you just don't accept modern progress that we're giving you so that your young boy at the age of 8 can decide he's a girl, And that is complete bunk because there is a Catholic ideal and it was lived. And Western civilization was imbued by it, East and West. And there was no doubt that that was normality. And all the saints say that is normality. And the society worked, it functioned with very few laws. And it was economically advancing. It laid the foundations of the modern economy and the modern, all the disciplines of science and arts. It's where everything came from and was preserved that was good. And the Marxists want you not to think that way because that's their enemy. They're out to destroy all Western civilization. So anyone who admires what it was and what they really hate is their avowed ideologic enemy. So we're going to tell you what they really hate here. And the purpose of the show is to convince you to become a true traditional Catholic and not one of these fake aped versions of it that just push their agenda of the Freemasons.
Yeah, before we get too far along, you can actually learn about it pretty darn good by Brother Alexis's brother, Dimitri.
Okay, so, oh, you disappeared there. So I have a brother, one of my two brothers, his name's Dimitri, and he runs a game company. He publishes this wonderful game called Ottonian Empire, which is all about the Holy Roman Empire when Catholics ruled the world. And AJ bought himself a copy because all the cards of the nobles in it are his relatives by blood or marriage. So he's had a wonderful time playing that game. And this is not an endorsement of my brother's game company, but nevertheless, if you want a copy, AJ will probably put a link in there. Only because this is an excellent way to shatter all your ideas of how society should be ordered. When I was in college, I read this wonderful book on the Ottonian Empire. And I forget the name of the author. It was like 900-page history of medieval Germany. It was absolutely brilliant. And it shattered all my false conceptions of history that I picked up reading William Durant, you know, or Michael Grant, two very bigoted historians. If you read The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, you know, that's just complete Masonic propaganda. You could throw that in the garbage. But the real history of what our Catholic ancestors achieved and accomplished is just absolutely amazing, and with so little but material things, but with so much virtue and honesty.
Yep. So, where would you like to start with this program?
So maybe I'll start by saying, what is monarchy? So we get the definition. So monarchy comes from the Greek monarchos. It means one ruler. And monarchy, in the sense that we will talk about, is Christian monarchy. So that is a single ruler who's recognized by his people to be chosen by Jesus Christ to be their temporal ruler. And here I want to make an important distinction, because we've been fed a lot of Masonic propaganda, and we got to unpack it and get rid of it. Don't ever say secular ruler. Always say what the Catholics say, temporal ruler. And the difference is this: your temporal ruler is the one that oversees the affairs of daily life in this world, in the world of time. And he should be Christian. But when you say secular ruler, you already exclude Christianity from that equation. And this is why in modern times you'll never see temporal ruler. You will always see secular ruler. And that's the Masonic lie, that the state should be separated from the church. So don't ever say secular ruler. So monarchy is about a Christian prince governing his people, whether it's a kingdom, a duchy, a county, a principality. The Pope was a Christian monarch, or he is still a Christian monarch in the Vatican State, for example. And there's still Christian monarchies around. The Grand Duke of Liechtenstein, the Prince of Monaco, the Duke of Luxembourg, and there are those are the Catholic ones. And there are those who are Protestant. They claim to be Christian, but, you know, and that's the King of Sweden, the King of England, the King of the Netherlands. There is a King of Belgium. He's Catholic, but the family's not so. And then there's the King of Spain. You know, it's the House of Bourbon, not so. And I think that's most of the monarchies on Earth. There's some monarchies. I think Japan is a monarchy, and I think there's a monarchy in on Borneo, the north side of Borneo, an Islamic monarchy, I think, and Saudi Arabia is a monarchy. And those don't believe that there are monarchs chosen by Jesus Christ, obviously. And so the concept of Christian monarchy unites the temporal order and the religious order, or the heavenly order. And it helps us understand, and it's a very Catholic view, that everything we do, we should do in the name of the Lord Jesus, as St. Paul teaches us. So why not government?
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, no Christian ever thought that when a Christian ran the country, the government should be anything but Christian. I mean, right from Constantine onward, government by Christian was always Christian. There was no concept of secular government or open to all religions. There's never any such concept. Toleration, maybe. The Christians tolerated pagans or Muslims in their reign, or Jews, but the laws were Christian. There was just no question about it.
Yeah. And it's and then we have so many different groups on social media. Whenever it's a certain time of the month or something, they're all screaming their heads off, bourbon this, bourbon this, bourbon this. But they don't realize, or they don't even care, that the Bourbons gave up their claim to the throne right after when Louis XVI was killed.
Yeah, so we're not in the age of monarchy, and we're in the dark ages where only ruins remain. And a ruin, like anything else, is broken. It's not what it should be. But you have people that are worshiping ruins, and that's not true monarchy. So yeah, you have all these heraldic societies and chivalric societies, and they go to banquets and they meet the heirs of all these noble houses of Europe, none of which, as far as I know, have the virtues of any of the monarchs of old. I mean, these people don't even want to help Christians anymore. You don't see them anything other than maybe doing a photo op here and there. But which of them actually thinks of himself as the father of his nation or of his people? Or even if he doesn't have temporal power anymore, nevertheless treat them as a father. And this is the big misunderstanding of what monarchy is about. Monarchy is, first of all, a paternal charity for your people, because your family and your people have been united for centuries, millennia, and your family's always cared for them and protected them. As soon as we see the Renaissance come on and monarchs begin to be plied by individuals in their courts who weren't Christian, who had nefarious principles, whether they were Protestant reformers or Jews or Muslims or secularists or atheists or Freemasons eventually, they lost that desire to care for the people, and they only wanted to exploit the people. And so consequently, the people stopped loving them, and that was the end of their power. Because monarchy doesn't exist through law. This is a big misunderstanding. Monarchies were not established by law. They were established by the love of the people for their monarch. And it was nearly all the ancient monarchies began with a claim of the people. The people rushed to their leader and said, "You will be our king. We trust you. I mean, your virtues are outstanding. Your family is excellent. Be our leader and our guide, our protector." And they didn't sit down and vote and say, "Well, we've been a republic. Let's decide to become a monarchy." You don't find that in history, except maybe when the restoration of the monarchy after the French Revolution, but it wasn't really restored as the monarchy. So, and the other big misunderstanding is there weren't constitutional monarchies. The monarchy didn't come into being because there was a constitution, and it wasn't limited in its power by a constitution. It came by act of public acclaim, love of the people for the leader or his family, and it ruled by Christian virtue, by mutual respect of persons, basic what we would call today human rights, but went far beyond that. Respect first for God, for Jesus Christ, and a desire to see his people live in peace and tranquility in the realm and see that they're prosperous. And this is something that nearly all modern families have lost. If they're out for prosperity, it's for themselves. They've all become capitalists, individualists, and actually lower the taxes of the people and help them get jobs. And there might be some nobility in Europe that does that, but have you heard of one? Is that why people go to chivalric meetings and join associations? No, and see, that's why the fake monarchism of the present will never go anywhere. It's just a relic, and it's a perverse relic. It's not what monarchy was about.
Yeah. So whenever I have to toot my own horn, or whenever you see you have to bring it up, and people like, what, who, and they finally find out who I am, and like, that guy. Oh.
So this is also one of the things that shows that many modern Catholics are very modern, not very Catholic. Because if you went back 1,000 years to the year 1022, January 20th, because it's January 20th today, and you asked a person, well, do you think it's okay to hate your monarch, despise him, envy him, um, look down on him, and think he's, some kind of bleep tard because he claims to be of royal blood? And I think universally it would say, certainly not. Show me the man who does that, and I'll run him through with a sword. He's a traitor to the realm.
Mm-hmm.
And if you found someone like that and you ran him through with a sword, and there were witnesses to what he had said against the monarch, there wouldn't even be a trial. You would get a reward from the king. He would hear of it and say, here's a subject that truly has defended the realm. Now, if you're a martyr and you find that shocking, threatening, inhumane, unjust, not following due process, then you're a Mason, and you have been completely turned into a little creature of the Masonic realm. If you think that way, if you don't have that natural reaction saying that's the way society should be, then you're not thinking as a Catholic anymore. You don't even feel as a Catholic anymore. You're completely brainwashed.
Mm-hmm.
And
So I just, yeah, whatever the reaction is like, oh, what are you? What are you? I was like, I'm a Capet. I'm all these things, and like, me.
envy, I think, for the monarchy is really a post-Renaissance thing. So, although in England, there's a long tradition to it, because when the Normans conquered England and took the kingdom of England from the Angles and the Saxons, they imposed a kind of elitism of a French family over the English people, and they treated the people like dirt. The worst kind of feudalism in Europe was the French one. They treated the peasants very badly. And when the French tried to rule Sicily, the Sicilians rebelled and cut their throats. When the French ruled Greece, they made the Orthodox hate the Roman Catholics for centuries, and they still do. And they had a hard time even ruling certain parts of the East, where they tried to impose that feudalism. So Catholic monarchy is not feudalism. Feudalism can be practiced well, but it could also be practiced very badly in exploiting the people. And Catholic monarchy is not a perfect system, but within its realm, within certain limits, obviously, of justice. And so to envy and despise someone because he's of noble blood is a most nefarious and villainous thing. Now, as I've said several times here on Militaris Radio TV, I'm absolutely delighted that AJ is a co-founder of the order, because I'm from peasants. My grandfather was a bastard, On my mother's side, there's no one illegitimate, but I mean, we come from the poor of the dirt poor, Messina. There's no one famous in our lineage. So I think it's absolutely fascinating. And AJ told me, I was like, really? And so I saw the lineage and I've seen it, and I can verify that it goes all the way back. But and if you don't react that way to nobility, even if you're a dirt poor peasant, grandson of a bastard, there's, you don't have Catholic virtue. There's something wrong there. Envy shouldn't be there. Envy is a vice. It's a moral sin. And we should admire and praise people for the goods they have. If your friend wins the lottery and wins 100 million, you don't hate him for it. You don't be jealous for it. You don't envy him for it. You say, wonderful, and you celebrate with him, even if he never gives you a penny.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's true Catholic charity. That's true Christian living. And we should have that regard, whether someone is a poor or someone's wealthy. Obviously, we don't rejoice that someone's poor. We find that he's, down on his luck on the street. We have compassion on him, but we don't hate or envy the poor or the rich. That's Marxist and Masonic.
Yeah. So, um, so Would you like to touch on that?
So Christian monarchy. So I want to first talk about what's a Christian monarch and why we should all strive to restore Christian monarchies. So it's pretty obvious that a nation can't even stand. It will not have any, if it doesn't have someone to defend it. The world today is being attacked on all sides by globalists. And who's running the globalists? It's the Rothschild family, who are a group of inbred Ashkenazis. They hate even purebred Jews because they're not purebred Jews. And they basically want to dominate the world and exterminate everyone because they want their family to reign over everyone and they want everyone else to be a slave. And they use a lot of Masonic organizations that they control. One is the Illuminati, and they rule through the Illuminati, all the other lodges. And you have to decide whether you're going to want them as your monarchs, who will change your genome, make you a complete slave, brainwash you, control your mind, control your children, do whatever they want with you, change your even humanity. Or you're going to have a very strong defender against them. And what's that going to be? We can see it's not democracy. They can buy everyone in democracy. Who's the one person they can't buy? And that's a Christian monarch. Why? Because he and his people are one. His monarchy exists because the people have chosen him, and he loves them and they love him. And his family lives for them and they live for him. And there is a bond. So all you people into corporatism out there that want national socialism or some kind of Marxist collective, you've been deceived. The true collectivity is the Catholic community where monarch and the people are united together in a bond of love and mutual respect, where one is the monarch and the others are the subjects, and where the monarch reigns because he wants the best for his people, not only from the point of national security, but also economic progress, but above all, morals. And so they can save their souls and get to heaven, because that's the real objective. And where he is unrelenting, audacious, quick, forceful in the defense of his people from all enemies, whether militarily or economically or ideologically, and where he's willing to drive out the enemies of his realm from his realm, which he has every right to. And that is really the only way to have peace, when you have enemies of the realm inside. No one has a right to live in your kingdom. And this is one of the things that we have to say openly in the West. The Jews do not have the right to rule over us Christians. Neither do Muslims. You don't have the right to our countries. You don't have the right to our culture. You don't have the right to our children. And you don't have the right to tell us what is right and wrong. We are Christians. Christ is our Lord and Master, and we are going to obey him. And how are you going to restore that society without a Christian monarch, a Catholic monarch, and unless we get back to Catholic monarchy? How to get back to Catholic monarchy? That's not an easy solution, but that is the direction we should head in. And if you're the kind of Catholic that bickers with another Catholic because, he has a little speck in his eye, and you're not helping the problem. You're part of the problem. And if you sucked up the propaganda of this secular party or that secular party, or the separation of church and state, or any of the errors the Masons have thrown at us in the last 200 years, you're totally ineffective and you're an enemy of Christ, because you're living and operating on those false principles. So you have a duty to correct yourself and get to understand what is right and wrong from a Catholic perspective. And I think Ordo Militaris Radio TV is a good channel for you to pick up a lot of red pills and free yourself from that. But Catholic monarchy is an important one. And Ordo Militaris Catholicus, we don't exist to restore monarchies, but we have a tie to monarchy. And it's one that we're proud of. And so, if that's a lump in your throat that you can't swallow, you're never going to like Ordo Militaris, because you're not Catholic and you just can't accept where Catholics came from and where they should return to.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It's just, yeah. You can see all the problems the Rothschild are causing, or let's see here how to do it nicely because of YouTube. Certain medical procedures they want everyone to do because of something that came from China, and it's backfiring. It's showing that it's harming everybody. It's killing a lot of people. Now they want to do this procedure to 5-month-old infants in America.
There's a point where you just have to stop tolerating, because if you accept the idea that I need to tolerate everything, you're going to end up being tolerate someone strangling your family in front of your own face. Worse yet, you're going to tolerate someone convincing you to strangle your family in front of your own face. And there are people who love evil, infinite and pure evil. They love it, and because they realize that's the only way they can get power, because God is their enemy.
Yeah.
And we Christians who have God as our ally need to start waking up and start collaborating with God. So one of the things I think is absolutely wonderful, if you've ever read anything about European history, is you can see that there are families who have served Jesus Christ throughout the centuries, and God has continually blessed their families with great leaders, great warriors, great statesmen, great saints, patrons of the church, and defenders of the poor. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. And that's not just by random chance. That has to be a will of God. And there is the legend of noble blood being the cause of virtue, but it's really a divine blessing. Like God chose the house of David to rule over the world. The house of David collapsed into utter corruption until Christ came along and he reigns forever. And in our religion, we are a monarchy. God is king. And his authority, he has given authority to the man, Jesus Christ, who's God and man, and he is our king. And he's called the King of Kings. That is actually a theological title of Jesus Christ. If you don't believe Jesus Christ is the King of Kings, then you're not a Christian. But if he's King of Kings, there must be kings. And where are these kings? So we as Christians have a duty to establish Christian monarchy, because that's the way Christ wants a society organized. And it honors the Father, and it protects the people. So
yeah, most of the problems of Europe, let's see here. How far did the Holy Roman Emperor under Otto the First stretch?
the family of the Ottonians lasted 2 or 3 generations up until like maybe the 11th century. But if you go from by a bloodline, you can trace from Pepin all the way into down to the modern King of Spain, and the House of Capet, which has changed names throughout the centuries, is we're talking about 1,500 years, in which a same bloodline has ruled over various parts of the Catholic world. And that doesn't mean all of them are best, but once the House of Bourbon came on the scene, everything started falling about, because the House of Bourbon, unlike the House of Capet, its first member, though he was a Capetian, he was a Protestant, apostatized from the faith, and he only came back to the Catholic faith so that he could have power. And the entire Bourbon line is marked with that kind of two-facedness. And not all the Bourbons have stood for the Catholic faith and defended the people. And from then on, about 1550s, we're talking, Europe's gone downhill, because they were the most important family, and yet they didn't hold up to it. And even the Habsburgs fell away from it. And Saint Hildegard von Bingen warned about this in the 11th, 12th century. She said that the Catholic nobility are going to lose all their power if they don't teach their sons to practice chastity. They don't care for their people, and God will wipe them out. And she foretold it. She warned them, but they didn't listen. So,
yeah, I was thinking, all the problems of Europe, at least most of Central Europe, France, and everything. I think, if whenever Benedict's successors comes, if God grants me health, and if I could finally get to the Vatican, like, Holy Father, I'm on this red circle here where Charlemagne was crowned. Restore this land to me. I will restore Christendom to you.
We need members of nobility that are willing to stand up and fight. I mean, not wallflowers that are sitting around saying, oh, I better not say that. The newspapers will attack me. You know, I won't be invited to any parties anymore. You know, that's old modern nobility. It's laughable. And when you consider organizations like the World Economic Forum were co-founded by one member of the Habsburg dynasty, you can see the absolute depths of depravity these people have descended to.
Yeah.
So, you know, well, I won't even mention the hierarchy who don't want anything to do with the nobility anymore unless it's collecting money. I don't think we've had Catholic monarchs popes even talk about the restoration of Catholic monarchy and how it's a duty of Catholics to uphold it for at least 150 years now. And we just had a long line of, some of them were saintly, St. Pius X, but more venerable this and that. But the rest are pretty much frauds. And even the modern canonizations since Vatican II are trying to make cowardice and collaborating the world appear to be holiness. And that's just, you know, an absolute absurdity. If you know anything about the history of the popes since Vatican II, you know that not a single one of them is a saint or worthy of canonization. Where are all the people they raised from the dead by touching them, you know? Because they're not saints, you know. That's so. Defend the church. I certainly didn't do that either. Yeah. They could be accused of the opposite. So. Excuse me, they're working on the pipes in the apartment building here. So now let's talk about the order's ties to monarchy. And I think the easiest way to do this, and this is my suggestion, so no one in the audience say that anyone else suggested this. We're going to start with Charlemagne, and we're just going to do, like you read in the gospel, so-and-so begot so-and-so, okay? So that's all we're doing. We're reading historical record. If you're offended by history, well, what can I say? You're a Marxist. Confess you're a Marxist, okay? If you don't like the reality, you know, that's fine. If you have any envy or jealousy in your heart, you're going to choke halfway through this list, and you completely fall off your chair when we get to the end of it. I don't care, because I'm Catholic. So Charlemagne, Charlemagne, he had a brother, didn't he?
Yeah.
What was his brother's name?
Carloman.
Carloman. And Carloman had a son.
Yep. So. Oh boy. So. Yeah. So. That I didn't prepare, guys. So all you got was my photos from who to who to who to who. But I forgot about Saint Carloman. And yes, he's a saint. I think he died a monk.
Yeah, he died a monk, not far from Rome. I've been on meaning to visit the monastery up on the top of the hill where he was, right on the edge of because he was Charlemagne's rival. And from his sons descend.
Yeah, his sons descends into what would be the, let's see here, the Capetian line. And then we start out with, let's see here, get all the way through easy. Let's see. We got Hugh the Great, which is King Hugh of Capet's father. Would have been my 46th great grandfather. Then we have King Hugh of Capet, the guy who started the Capetian line. He is my 45th great grandfather. Then we go to Robert II, the Pius of France. My 44th great grandfather. Then we go from it's doing family trees, guys. It's so weird because it takes you all different directions. So you go from Robert II of France to Fulk III, Count of Anjou, yet another 45th great grandfather. Then you get to Robert I of France, a 47th great grandfather. Then you get into the first husband of but Queen Eleanor of Aquitaine, Louis VII, King of France. He's my 40th step great grandfather. Then we get into the French side of the English, which is Eleanor of Aquitaine, my 40th great grandmother. She married King Henry II of England.
She had 3 famous sons.
Yeah. He's my 40th great grandfather. His first son, Henry the Younger, is my 40th great uncle. Then, where are you guys at? There you go. And his next one was Richard I, the Lionheart, 40th great uncle.
Who led the Third Crusade. So people say, what's our connection to the Third Crusade? But he had a brother who's much maligned in history and wasn't as evil as people claimed.
King John I.
King John the First.
Another uncle. Then we also have the brother of Eleanor of Aquitaine, William X, Duke of Aquitaine. Now, he started out like all the different Aquitaines and everybody living a sinful life until he ran into Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, and it was Saint Bernard of Clairvaux himself who converted William X, and he is now Saint William X, Duke of Aquitaine.
Mm-hmm. Now, from King John, your descent comes down from King John through. Do you remember which of his children? I forget.
Let's see. Let's go to the blog. Hold on, folks.
Because your family lineage goes through England now, through many centuries, and
so we go from King John to. Let's see. Where's his wife? Hold on, folks.
When you have as many ancestors, it takes a while to get through the catalog. But
yeah, it's come on, there we go. Jones Taiwan, Princess of England and Wales, Lady of Snowdon, daughter of King John of England.
Mm-hmm.
And it is through here that the entire royal house of Wales. I mean, you want to talk about ancient.
Yeah, they married in the Welsh royal house, which was even more ancient than the Plantagenets, because John was the house of Plantagenet.
It goes all the way back to year almost 90 AD.
Yeah, they claim to be related to King Arthur and all the original kings of England. And
there's one who was who I'm not, who there's a conspiracy about if she was murdered or not in that famous car crash. Diana, Princess of Wales, on
she's
the
also
Welsh side.
Oh, really? She's on the Welsh side. Now, from this Welsh princess descends ultimately, was it the Powell family?
Mm-hmm.
And the Powells didn't stay in England, did they?
No, they came on. They came on over and became the first family of Maryland and Virginia, and it was around in that area that they met and married into the Washingtons and the Adams.
Yeah. So Martha Washington is like one of your aunts, is she?
Yeah.
Because. Mm-hmm.
That was one of the strange reactions. But you're related to George Washington? He didn't have no grandfather. Everybody has a grandfather, you dumb idiot.
And the word related means not only by blood but also by marriage for those who,
Yeah,
you know, just can't swallow it. So then the Powells kind of like settled America. And
yeah.
how do you come to be related to the Powells? Because your surname is Bauman.
So the Powells then changed their name from Powell to Pulver, which they also have a town in New York, Pulver,
Hmm.
New York, and it was through the Pulver line that they married into the German Steinmates, which is my mom's side. And and then my mom met my dad, Ballman's side, and
Hmm.
here we are.
Okay, so I got the blood of the blood of the Charlemagnes in you, and of the Capetians, and the of the Plantagenets, and the Welsh royal family goes all the way back. And I'm going to count it. I have a BA in anthropology. I'm not an expert in dynastic relations, but I have a BA in anthropology, which gives me a bit more education than anyone else on that thing. And I can tell you when one of the most common argument is, well, everyone's related to Charlemagne. After all these centuries, everyone's going to have some blood in them. To which I'll say, that's true, because by some bastard or another, you're probably related to him. But to be a nobility, you can't be the son of a bastard, so you can't claim
And
that.
what was it? What's that special big name for a three-way tie into Charlemagne?
I don't know. I don't think I've heard that. So, yeah, the thing about tracing your lineage is each of us has uh, four grandparents. And so in all these noble houses, if you actually are of noble blood, you'll find that you're related to many noble families, and it ties all over Europe. So by marriage and blood, AJ is related to most of the nobility of Europe and most of history, even here in Poland and in the Ukraine. So um, um,
We won't say the other side because well, the two don't like each other right now.
yeah, okay. So, and this is one thing I also want to point out. People say, "Oh, well, no, you have to be a direct male descendant, otherwise you are not an heir." Well, so that's actually a post-Renaissance concept, okay? And it is true, while the direct male descendants inherited the land, that doesn't mean the non-direct male descendants were not of noble blood. They were. And so, that's just, one of these make believe things. And all those tighter rules of nobility actually, ironically, undid themselves. House of Bourbon was a big promoter of these tight rules of nobility, and our house can define who an heir is, and our house can define who is not an heir. And they have this thing called morgantic marriage, is when a nobleman marries someone who's not noble, and they claim the children aren't heirs and aren't noble, which no one in the Middle Ages would have even thought, because they were Christians, they weren't bigots or elitists. And so, by their own rules, they've undone themselves, because one part of the Bourbon line was born blind, and he actually signed a paper saying none of his children would be heirs, and so that was the end of his line. Another, after the War of the Spanish Succession in 1705, thereabouts, signed a document saying his line would not be heir to the throne of France. And then another one in the French Revolution condemned his own brother, the King of France, to death in an act of absolute treachery. And these people have the gall to claim that they're heirs to the throne of France. No, I'm sorry. By your own rules that you invented, you're no longer the heirs of France. And so that's kind of ironic. I guess that's God's punishment for Pharisaism and
Yeah.
Bangla.
Um, and you got this Louis Bourbon. He says, "Oh, I'm a Count of Anjou. Oh, that's nice. I'm a Duke of Anjou."
Yeah, then they go out and invent titles they never had. So if your family was never the Counts of Anjou, you just can't claim the title. No. So if your family's heir to the monarchy, you can grant titles, but if you don't have any land on it anymore, it's just fake. So this is something in the Middle Ages was never done. No one made anyone the prince of something that didn't exist. That's just complete modern error. It would have been considered laughable and a cause for an insult and ridicule. Titles always came with lands. So if you don't have lands, you don't have titles. And in monarchy, if you own the land, you had the right to judge all the peasants there and raise taxes. You were the complete government. And the Middle Ages is wonderful low taxation. Do you know that in the Middle Ages, you would be, as a peasant, taxed maybe 2 or 3 times every 100 years? 2 or 3 times. And the tax was like you had to pay a shilling for every fireplace in your house. Or you had to pay, you had to pay equivalent of $2 for every person in your family. And people poo-poo monarchy today, and they're paying, well, Italians pay 73% of their income. They're absolute slaves. They're not even feudal peasants. They're slaves. And so, we Catholics shouldn't poo-poo monarchy for any reason. But if you start looking at it economically, you definitely shouldn't poo-poo it. Do you know that the price of gold and silver, the price of bread and clothing remained the same for hundreds of years? There was no inflation. There was no commercial fraud. The Jews weren't controlling the society. And people and boys grew up to be men and girls grew up to be women. And people married and had children. There was no abortion. There was no overpopulation.
Mm-hmm.
There was no destruction of the environment. And the countryside is absolutely quiet. There was no noisy electric or gasoline-powered engines, no mechanical, nefarious sort of things. And people didn't burn coal; they burned wood, and they lived in harmony with nature. The fields smelled of manure because that's what you used on them. And you rotated your crops, and you ate good natural foods. And there wasn't things like cancer or all these crazy modern diseases. So, for people who attack Catholic monarchy when Catholics ruled the world, they really have no basis to attack other than keep you ignorant about what was going on and make you think that modern times is better. But actually, modern times we're in the dark ages now. This is an absolute dark ages when the people ruling us can actually engage in plots to kill billions of people. And you can't even talk about it, or you'll be banned on social media. I mean, that's a gulag.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I put a tweet this morning, like to the trad Catholic dads, since yesterday was Father's Day. Don't raise your sons to be pacifists and just stay inside and pray the rosary or do nothing about Ukraine. Raise them to become Christian warriors.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, you're going to need Christian warriors on the front pretty darn soon in Ukraine. You're going to need all the help.
Yeah, I would say if you're not raising your sons to be Christian warriors, you're failing in your duties as a father. You're raising your children to be wimps and controlled and pawns of the globalists. So, what's the point of that? You're certainly not caring for your kids the way they should be cared for. But it's a tall undertaking because there's so many problems today about it. And you have to make some radical decisions to keep your family in normality, because just the forces of wickedness and of non-normality are just so strong and so pervasive everywhere that they vaunt themselves, And but Catholics have to start being Catholic and supporting things that are Catholic, and stop following the errors of the world and attacking other Catholics. Our biggest enemies right now are fellow Catholics. The war is no longer outside the walls of the church. The war is inside the church, and whole sections of the church are being weaponized by the Rothschilds, the Satanists, to destroy the church from within. And if you are attacking a Catholic for being truly a Catholic and for doing what has always been done, you're an enemy of Christ, and you have to face up to that fact. And we all need to out Catholics like that and say, hey, you're a fake, you're not real. And anyone out there trying to say they're a real Catholic and they're promoting pacifism, socialism, or the Republican Party, or any kind of crazy crap, excuse my language, junk like that, we got to call them out for what they are. And we got to get on board to being Catholic again, restoring Catholic civilization. Those who don't are going to be wiped out. They're going to be overwhelmed. And the great grandchildren won't be even human or of one gender. They'll be complete robots controlled, and they won't have progeny on this earth. But we know we'll have the victory because Christ said, "The poor shall inherit the earth." He didn't say the twisted, perverse children of the godless.
Yeah, to close it out, we go back to St. Hildegard Rombingen, and this is going to drive the Bourbons nuts. She didn't say the Bourbon flag, Bourbon gold was going to rise again in France. She said the White Lily. And who is the White Lily? The House of Capet.
Yeah, the Bourbons are, it's the golden lily. So there you go.
This is Lord of Military Radio TV signing off. Yes, Walt.
There's Walt.